So we are, I think, in a good place to get started. We might get some more folks joining us, but I think that this is a good place to start. All right, so welcome everyone to our Climate Stimulus and Fight to Vote campaign kickoff. Welcome, welcome. My name is Emily Frias. I'm the Maryland Grassroots Coordinator here at CCAN. Also joining us on this call is our Executive Director, Mike Tidwell, our Voter Engagement Coordinator, Nora Winsler. Go ahead and wave, guys. And our tech wizard for this evening is our Digital Campaigns Coordinator, Stacey Miller. I'd like to also let everyone know that this event is being recorded and it will be available on our website tomorrow. Now, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your video by making sure that the camera icon in the bottom left corner of your screen has a red line through it. That means that your camera is off if you don't want to be recorded. Additionally, and it already should have happened automatically, but we ask that you please mute your microphone during this event as well. So just be mindful of that. There's a lot of folks in the call. Should already be automatic, but just make sure. Okay, so 3 hot tips to get the most out of your Zoom experience tonight. Number 1, you can see, you can decide if you just want to see the person speaking or everybody in the call by toggling speaker view or gallery view in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Number 2, we encourage you to utilize Stacey Miller. Stacey, go ahead and wave again. If you are having tech issues, you can reach her directly by going to her picture, selecting the 3 dots in the upper right corner of her picture and selecting the chat button. Or you can go into the chat box, find the button that normally says everyone by default and finding her name there. Yeah, really encourage you to use Stacey if you're having tech issues. And number 3, we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the call. If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat, or if you're on the phone or can't access the chat menu, you can email info@chesapeakeclimate.org. That was info@chesapeakeclimate.org. Well, we've also got it in the chat there. So Stacey will be monitoring the chat throughout the evening, and we'll read the questions out loud when we get to the Q&A session. Okay, so we're really excited to let you know about these 2 critical Maryland campaigns and leave you empowered by the end of the evening to get involved. Before we start, I'll just review our agenda briefly. So there will be 5 main parts of the evening. First, we're going to give you just a quick intro into the context of this moment and why we're fighting for these 2 campaigns. And during that, you'll also have just a quick chance to connect briefly with some other climate advocates on this call. Number 2, we'll spotlight each campaign effort with some brief words from myself and our Executive Director, Mike Tidwell. After that, we'll move you into breakout sessions on each campaign where you'll hear more about specific tactics for planning, and you'll also have a chance to share your own ideas on how to make these efforts a success. Following that, we'll return to this plenary space where we'll give highlights of both sessions. As we imagine, most of you will probably want to take part in both of our campaigns, so stick around for the highlights of those breakouts. That'll also be when we ask you to sign up to stay involved. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we'll have a Q&A section. So please note that during this hour-and-a-half event, we don't have a planned break. So if you do need to get up and take a stretch, get a beverage, please feel free to do so as needed. You can turn your camera off and step away. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give it just a little, give you all just a little bit of background about who we are at CCAN for those who may not be as familiar. So Chesapeake Climate Action Network, or CCAN for short, was formed in 2002 at a time when most people weren't yet alarmed about climate change, and there were really no grassroots organizations exclusively dedicated to the issue in our region. And since then, we've really wielded grassroots power to bring about some incredible victories across our region, from some amazing clean energy gains here in Maryland to stopping pipelines in Virginia. So we really want to just take a moment to thank all of you who've been part of those moments, and welcome everyone who will be part of the next big win. So in contrast to those wins, I know I don't have to tell anyone that we find ourselves in one of the most challenging periods in our history. This year, epidemiologists found themselves in a very similar position to climate scientists, begging leaders to listen and act before it was too late. But now coronavirus has touched nearly every aspect of our lives and decimated our economy, with 1 in 6 working Marylanders filing for unemployment since this crisis started. Incredible number. These fights are unfortunately related in other ways as well. The air pollution that warms our planet already kills thousands of Marylanders every year by making them more prone to respiratory and cardiovascular disease. So it really wasn't surprising to learn that just a small increase in exposure to air pollution makes someone 15% more likely to die from COVID-19. And with all of this going on, the clock has not stopped ticking on climate change. We now have only 10 years left of the 12-year deadline given by the monumental IPCC report that told us that we are at risk of extinction if we don't have our emissions by 2030. So there's really no way to overstate how critical it is that we course correct before it's too late. We absolutely must see a change in our leadership, and we absolutely must have a plan to get us out of this mess. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today, 2 campaigns that will take decisive action in fighting for our future. All right, so before we get into those details, I want to stop and make sure we're all feeling grounded for the road ahead. I know there are a ton of things vying for your time and attention right now, but you've chosen to be with us here tonight, so we really invite you to be present with us in this moment. And what better way to prepare ourselves for this upcoming fight than looking to those who've come before us? I'd like to acknowledge the incredible leadership that we've seen emerge in these dark times, from the unprecedented Black Lives Matter movement to the indigenous leaders on whose stolen land we all reside, to the youth who are here to birth a new future. So right now, everyone join me in 3 full breaths to ground yourselves and send these inspiring figures your gratitude. All right, thank you. And now I really want everyone to just focus on one figure or movement that really inspires you. And it can really be anyone, even someone that you know. And I want you to take a moment to really hold that figure in your mind. And I truly believe that if you can see it, you can be it. And every day you can choose to embody the values that you recognize in others. So for 3 minutes, we're going to go into breakout sessions with 1 or 2 other people. Please give your name, where you're zooming in from, and what inspirational figure came. What inspirational figure? So you're going to see a prompt on your screen that says "Join Breakout Session." Please accept the invitation, and you're not going to have to do anything to return. You'll be automatically returned when the time is up. All right. So you're going to see that prompt on your screen very shortly. All right.
Anyone not seeing the invite to join a breakout room, let me know, and I'll add you to one. Feel free to raise your hand or, okay, I see you. Let me add you. Okay, hang on 1 second. Let me add you to a breakout room. Let's see here. Okay, hang on 1 second. Anyone else missing the invite to join a breakout room? Let me know.
Hi, Stacy. There was no one in my breakout room, number 7. I was there by myself.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can put you in a breakout room with someone else. Let's see here. Oh, gotcha. Okay. There you go. Hang on.
If not, I can just wait till they come back.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
You can be in a breakout room with me.
Yeah, actually, how about the folks that are in here? How about you guys just go ahead and introduce yourself in this room?
Great.
Sure.
So it looks like we have Jeremy, Emmanuel, Polly, Liz, and Priscilla.
Yeah.
Everybody's muted.
Am I muted?
Nope, I
Oh,
can
here
hear
we
you,
go.
Jeremy.
So
Okay,
Jeremy, who was your favorite hero?
well, I don't know who's my favorite, but the one that popped into my head immediately was John Brown. I had just almost finished listening to a podcast about him. If you don't know, he was an abolitionist, and he ended up actually basically trying to take over Harper's Ferry by military force for the sake of freeing slaves. So pretty inspirational.
Well, mine was Bill McKibben, who started 350. And I feel like he is somewhat responsible for starting a whole movement. Everybody's coming back now, right?
Yes.
Movement. Oh, we're in the main session.
Another, oh, well, we'll talk more later.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Nice talking to you. I'm sorry, that wasn't long.
Hi, welcome back, everybody. Yes, the sessions were not long. I hope you got to connect with someone and share what was inspiring to you. Would love if you would drop in the chat just one inspiring figure that you either learned about or that you were able to mention as we just going to wait a little bit for folks to return. I'm seeing Greta, of course, Obama, Bernie Sanders, George Floyd, Liz Lee, our former organizer. Love to see that name. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that with us. We really wanted to kick things off right. So with that, let me see. We've got Mike. Let me find Mike.
M. Lungo.
Mike, are you unmuted? There you go.
Yep, I am.
There we go. Awesome. All right, Mike, go ahead and we'll kick it. You can give us more info about our voter education campaign.
Thank you, Emily. I
Oh,
just
Mike.
really want to, let me mute myself.
Oh.
Mike, unmute.
Mike, you're on mute. Yep. Can't hear you yet.
Now,
There we
can
go.
you hear me?
There we go.
All right,
Yes.
great. I want to thank Emily and the whole CCAN staff, Stacy, everyone who put this together. And it's so great to see so many faces from all over Maryland. I think that we have most of the counties, maybe not all, but most of the counties in Maryland represented here tonight. And we wanted to anticipate what's on your mind. That's what drove this gathering tonight. And I think like you, like us, what's on your mind are really two big things. One, obviously climate change, you're a climate activist and volunteer. And the other thing that's totally on our minds is this upcoming election. You know, we say it every election cycle. This is the biggest election of our life, but this time it's for real. This is the biggest election of our lifetime. It's not an exaggeration to say the entire planet is counting on us to have a good election in November, whether it's COVID, climate change, police brutality. It all depends on a functioning democracy. So CCAN and CCAN Action Fund wanted to do our part to make sure that we got as many people to the polls, that we did as much voter education. So we did our part to make sure we have a full and responsible election this fall. And I got to be honest with you, you know, we formed this campaign called Fight the Vote, which you'll hear more about if you go into the breakout. We formed this campaign thinking that we would be doing a lot of calling and texting into states like Virginia and Pennsylvania, making sure people are registered, making sure that they vote. But then Larry Hogan, our governor of Maryland, surprised us and decided he was going to try to suppress votes right here in Maryland. Many of you have heard that Larry Hogan announced 2 weeks ago that instead of just mailing ballots to everyone like we had in the primary and in the 7th congressional district vote in April, instead of just mailing ballots to everyone, Larry Hogan, following the order from Donald Trump, is going to make us vote in person at every polling place across the state or submit to a complicated absentee ballot. And so we have been pushing back on that. Those of you who get our emails know that CCAN has been very vocal on this. We had a petition drive. We sent 1,300 signatures to the governor saying, please let us vote directly by direct ballot. We had a rally in Annapolis, and we're going to do more. And I know a lot of you are very interested in staying involved in that campaign. I will say that what you can do right now is just call the governor and tell him to let us vote by direct ballot. None of this absentee ballot or voting in person during COVID. So that number is 410. I want you to call the governor's office at 410-974-3901. And Nora is going to paste into the chat box a short video that you can share on Facebook. And it also has the phone number for the governor's office, 410-974-3901. So many of you have been asking us to stay involved in that fight, and we will. But beyond that, we know that voter suppression is happening everywhere. Today on the front page of the Washington Post, there's a whole story about how voting by mail and voting in person was, you know, there were a lot of wrinkles in the states that had primaries yesterday. And this is coming from the White House on down, and we have to do something about it. So what are we going to do about it? We formed this campaign called Fight the Vote, and you can learn more about it again during our breakout. But basically, our goal is to inform as many people as possible how to get registered to vote, not just here in Maryland, but in Virginia, across the region, and also in other states across the country, including Pennsylvania and North Carolina. How to get registered, how to vote, what are the details about voting in person. And those are all great things that you can learn more about during our breakout session. We hired an incredibly talented Virginian, Nora Winsler. Wave your hand, Nora. She's going to be leading the breakout session in a couple of minutes. So if you want to make fighting voter suppression part of your life, if you want to participate in this most important election of our lifetime, you can join that breakout group. And there are going to be 2 breakout groups happening simultaneously. Keep in mind that we're going to have report backs, and we're also going to record the breakout groups. So if you can't be in 2 places at one time, but if you're interested in fighting voter suppression, join us on that breakout. Listen, in terms of voting, we're all hearing lots of options. We're getting emails about, you can write letters over here, you can send texts over here, you want to be part of this campaign. What we did at CCAN Action Fund is we sifted through all the options, all the things that we could do to spend our time and encourage you to get involved in making sure this is a fair election. We sifted through all the options, and now we're presenting what we think are those best options to you. One of them is to just write letters. Here are 20 letters that I just wrote the other night to people in Pennsylvania through a campaign called Vote Forward, and we'll tell you more about that. Also, just texting. A lot of us have been using our phones to text unregistered voters, and we've sifted through every tool, every option out there to bring you the ones that are best and easiest to make part of your life. So that's what we'll be talking about in the breakout. And I just want to close by saying, again, this is the most important election of our lives. We really hope that you'll make this part of your life, to give 1 or 2 or 3 hours a week, as I'm doing, as the whole Tidwell household in Tacoma Park is doing. We don't want to have regrets. No matter what happens in November, we want to make sure that we can all look each other in the eye and say, we did all we could to have a fair election. We did all we could to get people to vote, because when Americans vote, good policy emerges. Again, I can't resist giving Larry Hogan's phone number one more time, though. It's 410-974-3901. Check the chat box for that video that I hope you'll share on social media, and call the governor's office and demand a direct ballot. Demand that he mail all Marylanders a ballot so we can vote through direct ballot like we did in the primary in June. And I'll see you in the breakout. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. All right, and even with everything going on, we cannot lose sight of the fact that we are in the climate decade. What we mean by that is that in these next 10 years, we will determine if we can stave off the worst of climate change. Here in Maryland, we're at particular risk. We have the second most communities of any U.S. state at risk of coastal flooding. We're projected to go from just 6 days a year over 95 degrees Fahrenheit to 62 days a year. Our governor's administration has estimated that we will see $28.6 billion in losses to our economy from climate change by 2050, and that was before the coronavirus. According to analysis from the Board of Revenue Estimates, post-coronavirus economic recovery could last as long as 3 years. So we need both short-term actions that address the job losses that we're facing from COVID, and long-term plans to make sure that we accept and adapt to the climate reality. So we have 2 strategic prongs for how we can make jobs and make progress on climate solutions at the same time. The first prong is focused on what Governor Hogan can do, and the second prong is still in progress, and it's focused on what the General Assembly can do in January. So first, let's talk about Governor Hogan. He could take several actions that could stimulate the economy and go a really long way towards addressing climate change, and I'm going to highlight 3 of the most impactful ones for you tonight. So the first thing that he could do is pave the way for more solar projects. The Hogan-appointed Public Service Commission is really dragging their feet on approving over 40 solar projects that could by themselves create over 3,000 jobs. So he could strongly encourage the PSC, the Public Service Commission that he appointed, to move a lot faster on these projects. Second, and a lot of you already know this, investing money in weatherizing homes and increasing energy efficiency is a really good jobs creator. And it really helps reduce the air pollution that's contributing to the coronavirus death rate that we see. So Hogan could release already earmarked funds for energy efficiency investments that benefit low-income communities through the Empower program, which would save us all money, but also improve our health and create a lot of jobs. And finally, also, as a lot of you I know on this call know, Hogan loves to spend billions of dollars expanding highways, just throwing money at expanding our highways, which we know also brings more pollution, contrary to what his administration might sometimes bizarrely argue. So simultaneously, we've also seen billions cut from public transportation projects over the years of his administration. I'm from Baltimore, and the mythical Red Line has still not happened. And we also know that for every $1 billion invested in public transit, it creates 50,000 jobs. So we really have an overdue obligation to fully fund our public transit system as a key part of our economic recovery. So those are just a few actions that he could take right now. It's not an exhaustive list. We've shared a little bit more information and demands on our campaign page. I know a lot of you have already signed our petition, and we'll make sure that you sign that if you haven't already. It's really targeting what Hogan could do right now. Okay, so that's Hogan covered. Let's talk about the second prong of action, legislation in the 2021 session. So January might feel like it's a really long way away, because it still is, but it's always less time than you think. But still, we'll be honest in saying that we still have a lot of work to do to solidify the specifics of a policy. And we have a lot of partners and legislators to work with to get there. But we do know that in January, we will have a re-envisioned version of our 2020 priority legislation, the Climate Solutions Act. Let me just give you a little bit of context about what happened earlier this year in Annapolis. Unfortunately, the Maryland 2020 session was cut short by coronavirus with no major climate legislation making it over the finish line. Before the session abruptly ended, we actually came really far towards passing the Climate Solutions Act, especially for the first year of its introduction. And it featured immediate actions on climate, it set scientifically determined emissions reductions deadlines, and it made key adjustments to our really flawed planning process to address both the scientific inaccuracies that we were finding and the lack of focus on equity and job transition. So now in this change context, we know we need an economic recovery framework that really addresses the climate risks, transitions us to our renewable energy future, and critically invests in the communities that have been hit hardest by COVID and extreme energy. So our priority will be on setting the same ambitious emissions reductions deadlines while also focusing on low-cost, high-job creating actions, as well as making sure that our planning process is a lot more thoughtful. So I'll conclude my thoughts here by just giving a few examples of what could be in a new policy. We can pursue requirements for new commercial and residential buildings to have rooftop solar. We can expand and earmark funds towards frontline and disadvantaged communities. We can put people to work managing forests and managing and growing our forests that act as huge carbon sinks. We can require that all state agencies consider climate in their planning. These are just a few ideas, but ultimately we know that no matter what, we cannot simply put the economy back the way it was. It really was not working for most people, and it was driving us headfirst into another extreme crisis. So instead, we need to put climate action at the core of our economic recovery and listen to scientists before it's too late. So I really hope that you'll join our session on the climate stimulus, where we'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to make this a priority for leaders by building really strong narrative and making our movement as large as possible. All right, and with that, we're going to be moving into our breakout session. So we have two sessions today, one for the climate stimulus and one for Fight to Vote. Many of you we were already able to get in touch with before this event to make your decision about which session you'd like to attend. And so our tech wizard is gonna start assigning us to those rooms. So if you've already logged in with the email address and the name that you RSVP'd with, and we were able to get in touch with you, you should already be, you'll be whisked away. For those of you that did not, you'll stay in the room and Stacy will walk you through how to select one of the two breakout sessions. Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello again.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Nora.
All right, and as we're returning, please make sure that you've muted yourself again. If you were talking during the breakout session. Great, it looks like we've got, let me see. Stacey, can you chat me just if everybody is back?
Yeah, everyone should be back in the main room from the breakout rooms.
Great. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much. So we're just gonna highlight really briefly the top line of each of those discussions. Then we're gonna ask you to sign up. We'll give you a sign up form. And then we will go into our general Q&A. So first, I'm gonna turn it over to Nora to give us the highlights of our climate stimulus breakout session.
Hey everyone, so basically in our breakout discussion, we talked about how no voter education, voter outreach organization has ever dealt with an election like this one. So we are working to fill the gaps that other groups are doing because it's all hands on deck. We've all got to be doing something. We did mention that We were originally targeting our work elsewhere other than Maryland, and now we're finding that we need to give a lot more attention to Maryland. So we had some good questions and comments about how we're going to target more of our work specifically to Maryland now that Governor Hogan has made this decision. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done for Marylanders so that they understand how to vote in the upcoming election. We went over all the volunteer opportunities. We talked about our voting tool and our sponsor, a voter map on our resource hub. It can all be located on our Fight to Vote resource hub, which will be sent in a follow-up email to you.
Awesome, thanks, Nora. Okay, really quickly, so in the climate stimulus breakout group, we talked about some of the upcoming tactics that we will be pursuing to make sure that this is a top priority for legislators. So we talked about ways that we can get big, which is by relational organizing, of course, my favorite word, which just means reaching out to your friends and family and making sure that they sign the petition. Then we also talked about our community sign-on letter for the climate stimulus, which was a big tactic in previous campaigns. We're going to do that again, work to get as many community organizations signed on to our campaign as possible. And then we started talking about ways to directly get in touch with legislators, all of the challenges that we face in coronavirus, but knowing that there's still a lot of great tried and true methods that we can use to get in touch, including social media, letter writing, calling offices. We know that there's going to be some question about each office and how they are communicating with their constituents, and there's definitely going to be some variety there. But we are really hopeful to get some great research and really dig into and get everybody participating in reaching out to legislators. And then we concluded with just some discussion of what we might like to see as part of our demonstrations and different organizations and communities that we could be reaching out to. Okay, so that about wraps up for, I think I got everything in this session. If there's something I missed, if you were in that session, there's something I didn't mention. There was also a lot of great chat happening during the session. So go ahead and put in the chat if there's something you think I missed in my summary there. Okay, so we are now going to ask you all to make sure that you stay engaged with this campaign. What's really going to make both of these efforts a success, and it's really going to save our planet, is making sure that everyone takes part in both of these campaigns. We've made the argument for you why this is important. We hope you are on our side now. So please, we are going to drop a link in the chat about to help you get involved. So Stacey has just dropped it. Go ahead and open that. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, my cat is really getting me. Joys from working from home. All right, can I get a thumbs up from folks? Did you get that link opened? Seeing some thumbs up. Thumbs up, very good. All right, please take a moment to fill out this questionnaire. This is what we will use to bring you through the journey of fighting by our side for the planet. We really hope that you engage with us in all of these ways, every way that you can. We're in the last 100 days before this election, and every day we have more and more impacts from coronavirus. So this is the time. This is the time to get involved, and we've been really inspired by everything we've been able to accomplish together so far at CCAN, and now is not the time to stop. So get that filled out. And when you have filled it out, please, again, come back and give me a thumbs up. Just watching. I see folks typing. That's good. I love that. Seeing some thumbs up. Great. Great. Seeing more. Okay, awesome. I'm seeing a good portion of folks have filled this out. And don't worry, if you're having any trouble accessing it, we will email it to you as well. All right, and with that, we are going to, I love watching the chat myself too. We are going to move into our question and answer. I know Stacy has been noting your questions throughout this event. And we are really excited to get to all of your questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Stacy, who will give us our first question.
Hey, Emily. So we have a question in the chat. Jackie is asking, how do we reach out best to our legislators if they're not in Annapolis? Can we still call them or write letters?
So this is a very interesting question, much more so than other years. So when we were still in session and just shutting down during coronavirus, there was a lot of variability. Some offices were very diligent about making sure that their calls were being forwarded, that they were clear about how constituents could still get in touch. They had Google Forms set up. So we do see a lot of variety with different legislators. My hope is that as we get closer to session, we'll see a lot more clarity and leadership from our leaders on how we can get in touch with them. I know that, there is, most legislators, they have an in-district office and their Annapolis office. So, that's like two different ways to get in touch with them. It's definitely going to take some research and reporting from all of you back to us on how it goes, contacting those legislators, what feedback you're getting, and if you've found any really good ways to get in touch. So that is going to be a change. I wish I had a way easier answer for you like we normally do, but just given our experience with how it went at the end of session when things were shutting down, I suspect there's going to be a lot of variety. But thank you for your question.
The short answer is yes, you can definitely reach your legislators. If you have trouble reaching your legislators, let us know. I've contacted tons of legislators since the pandemic began. Many of you have. So yes, 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 you can get a hold of your legislator. And if you have trouble doing so, we will help you.
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Great. The next question, and I'm sorry if this was answered in the Fight to Vote breakout. I wasn't in either of the breakout rooms, but someone is asking about voter suppression, and they're asking, where is Attorney General Brian Frosh on this issue?
We did cover that a bit in the breakout. Brian Frosh has been very vocal on this issue. He was on Kojo Nandi's show on WAMU a couple of weeks ago. He wrote a passionate email to everyone on his email list a couple of weeks ago. He's been quoted in the media. He has called Hogan's voter plan for November, where we have to vote in person or through a complicated absentee ballot. He's called that a potential catastrophe for public health and for our democracy. Those are very powerful words from a pretty mild-mannered and likable Attorney General who's very business-like. So he's involved. What his next steps are, whether he's able to escalate or be more visible, I think we'll learn soon. But there's a lot more fight in him and all the rest of us, I know. So stay tuned.
Great, thanks, Mike. Next question, a lot of voting questions here. How are you urging Governor Hogan to reverse course on the voting issue?
We're going to do it with your help. Again, we posted the video in the chat box. Copy that video, send it to all your friends. It's a great 2-minute video on Hogan's plan to suppress votes. Also, the phone number for Hogan, 410-974-3901. I've called that number twice already. I try to call at least once a week, 410-974-3901. That's how we're going to stop him. We're going to create enough noise. We're going to reach out to enough friends. We're going to share the information with enough other people that we're going to stop him.
Great, thank you. The next question is, how can we best connect climate and economic justice to the climate stimulus action? Great question. Who wants to take that one?
I'm trying to come off of mute. Yeah, I think that that absolutely has to be a central piece of our climate stimulus response. We, in the Climate Solutions Act, did include some provisions that we were hopeful that would be really, really impactful on that front. The provisions were to create 2 work groups, one that would be really focused on climate justice, that would be comprised of folks from frontline communities across Maryland, as well as key members of the Maryland Department of Environment, that would really take a look at how are climate programs being distributed across communities in Maryland. We were really inspired, that piece was really inspired by similar legislation in New York State that actually even set a benchmark for how much of climate spending should be going to frontline and disadvantaged communities. We're really, really inspired by that piece. Additionally, we also wanted to create a climate jobs work group that would look at the jobs impact and make sure that those just transition ideas that everyone has are actually being carried through, and that those job programs were going proportionately to folks impacted by our transition. So we are hopeful to pursue really similar provisions in our upcoming policy that would really take a look at that, as well as, we're also inspired by the fact that as part of the federal, some of the proposed federal legislation for our climate planning also includes that critical 40% benchmark of climate programs going towards disadvantaged communities. So again, inspired by New York. So that we really want to take a look at that again and make sure that we're getting accurate information about where our climate spending is going. That's just not something that's been part of the Maryland Department of Environment's climate planning or reporting is what proportion of funding is going to disadvantaged communities. They don't have a definition for disadvantaged communities in terms of climate change. So we really want to correct that and make sure that that's a key part of whatever legislation goes forward. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks. Okay, it looks like we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Okay, one I'm seeing in the chat is, what is the time frame on which Hogan could reverse course and send everyone a ballot? Like, at what point is it too late?
That's a great question. The governor's plan is to print absentee ballots no later than August 17th. I think that was the latest date. And so we need him to basically reverse course in the next week and change that mandate to sending out actual ballots. So we don't have much time. The governor himself is apparently starting to realize that his plan is unworkable. He sent an angry letter to the Board of Education saying they had 48 hours to come up with a plan. The reality is it's just going to be nearly impossible to open up every polling place in the state. And if you're not going to do that, you need to make it as easy as possible for people to vote. And voting by absentee ballot just doesn't make sense. So hopefully in the next 7 days, he will reverse course. But once we hit August 17th, it'll probably be our fate will have been decided, and we'll either get the vote directly, or we're going to have to deal with this bad system and educate everyone on how to vote by absentee ballot. So we'll keep you posted, but time is running out for sure.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Let's see here. Okay, someone is asking, if Trump refuses to leave office, what can our mobilized groups do to resist?
Number one thing you can do to resist is do everything you can between now and November 3rd to get as many people as possible to vote. Not just in Maryland, where Trump is in no danger of getting the popular vote in Maryland, but join us in getting people to the polls in Pennsylvania and Virginia and Michigan. The number one way that we can get a peaceful transfer of power in November is that the election is not close. It's not close. If the election is close, not good. So we need, and we know that when lots of people vote in this country, I believe that we're going to have a change in government. That's what the polling shows. That's just the basic reality. But people have to show up to vote. They have to vote accurately by mail. We have to help that happen. So the best thing we can do to have an orderly post-November 3 America is have a really passionate pre-November 3 America where people help other people get to the polls or to cast their ballots.
Also add Ohio and Florida as battleground states.
Can I give a quick shout out before we adjourn? So Maryland's reduced its carbon emissions more than any other state in the country. And a big reason for that is CCAN's activism. So kudos, let's keep it up.
Thanks for that.
Number one.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily, Mike, any closing thoughts?
I would just say that, look, we're all stuck at home. Look at us. We're stuck at home. We're still in quarantine. The pandemic is still going on. None of us in March or April, none of us thought it was going to go on this long. It's sad. It's depressing. It's demoralizing. We're all living that. We're seeing the health impacts. We're seeing the economic impacts. We're concerned about our democracy, and we feel powerless a lot of days. We feel like the virus is too big for us to have power over. The economy, the contraction is so massive, we feel powerless over that. But we're not powerless. This whole call has been about empowering you, empowering me. You know, Greta Thunberg is famous for saying, if you want to feel hope, then act, because action leads to hope. Nothing makes you feel more hopeful than action. Science itself, there are all kinds of biological studies that show when people take action for a social common good, they feel better. They're biologically, your body creates endorphins that make you feel better when you take action to help others. So as we're stuck at home, it turns out that Nora has helped us find all these tools for how we can be empowered from home through texting, through letter writing, through phone banking. And Emily has laid out all these things that we can do to get our legislators ready to help our economy rebuild through clean energy. So if you want hope, take action. If you want to feel better, take action. If you want to feel empowered and not powerless, then take action. Take advantage of everything you heard tonight. Take advantage of our great website resources, everything that we've posted into the chat box. Let's stay together. Let's stay close together. Let's stay in touch with each other. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, call us, email us. we will stop. We will give you the information you need. But again, we will not have an orderly and hopeful post-November 3 America unless we all fulfill our responsibilities pre-November 3. And then we'll just stay in touch. Anything else, Emily?
No, just thank you so much, everybody. If you didn't get your question, Stacy posted in the chat, if you didn't get your question answered, please email info@chesapeakeclimate.org. But besides that, I just wish everyone a wonderful rest of your evening, and thanks again for spending your time with us.